Welcome to the Princess Power Hour, where we show you how to go from pauper to powerful by transforming your health, your wealth, and your relationships. Here's the princess of podcasting herself, Natalie Thomas.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I have been away, and I am back. I am so refreshed. I have been to Paris and to Rome, and I came home to the most amazing snowstorm and didn't have internet all day. So guess what? I didn't have to work because I could do all the fun things I wanted to do instead of the work things. So I still have to get caught up on those things, right? But before we do our show, and it's going to be a great show, as always, I'm going to tell you about my lip color of the day. This is Caramel Apple Cider Diamond, and check it out. It is kiss proof. It is smudge proof, and it will last anywhere from 4 to 18 hours. Now, I usually get about 9 hours, give or take, some a little longer, some a little less, and I love it so much. And if you want to pick some up, you can go to www.lipstickkissesandlove.com. While you're there, I want you to make sure that you pick a color and a gloss. And we have a bunch of different glosses. These are only the two that I happen to have sitting right here. But the gloss is the secret sauce that locks it all in. You put 3 light coats of your color, and then you lock it with the gloss. You can re-gloss throughout the day to moisturize, but you don't need to re-add color. So that is fabulous. It is lead-free, it's wax-free, and all of those fabulous things. So today, we're going to change the subject, and we're going to be talking about being truly transformational. And I am very blessed to have Joy Idries with us today. And welcome, Joy.
Hello, it's lovely to see you. And
Thank
to
you.
meet your audience.
And Joy is in London, England. So I wasn't in London, but I was near there. Rome is not too awfully far from there. And Paris, I think Paris is closer than Rome.
Yes,
Yes.
that's right. And we've also been having snow.
Have you really?
Indeed, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, they had snow over in Paris and Rome before I got there. And mostly they had a lot of rain when I was there. But we just, sometimes, Joy, and I know that you know this, I can already tell just getting the vibe off of you from the information that you've given me before the show, that you have come to the maturity that we make up our mind what we're going to experience.
Oh, definitely.
And before I went on that trip, I found out it was going to rain just about the whole time. And I decided I was going to have an amazing time no matter what. And we did. We had an absolutely fabulous time. I did do a couple of what I thought were really fun videos for my Instagram people, and they didn't turn out. That was disappointing. But you know what? The world had come to an end. So, all right, everybody, let me tell you about Joy, and then we'll get going with the show. Joy's spiritual awakening and intuitive healing gifts arose out of a background of abuse, trauma, struggle, and pain. Her background is now to share the treasured knowledge and wisdom she discovered breaking through all of this to support others on their own personal journey of surrender to love. Oh, I love that. Surrender to love. I see people sabotage relationships and so many things that we fight. And you look around, and I can think of a dear, precious woman that I know that is extremely obese, and she wears it like armor to protect herself from pain.
Yeah.
And my goodness, you don't want that, but it's that surrendering that brings the healing. So tell us about your journey, Joy. Where did all of it start for you?
That's a long story. It actually started in the womb, funnily enough, because when I was about to be born, my mother was very stressed. It's a home birth. And my father, he was an alcoholic. So he turned up at the last minute drunk and out of his head and not able to manage and all of that. And my grandmother was there, and she hit him over the head with a frying pan. She was so angry with him. And it was one of those lead ones, a very heavy one. And she knocked him out, and she thought that she'd killed him. And what happened for me in the womb was my mother was in shock because she thought her husband was dead. And the shock went right through me as a fetus, as a little baby.
Wow.
And so I got it that the world was a dangerous place. That if I come out, I might be killed. And so, of course, I came out and all of that. But it seemed to have set the pattern for much of my life after that. So then, when I was, three and a half, I was very excited to make my mum happy because she was always stressed and always depressed and always, shouting and all of that. I had this idea that I was going to make her a cake. But of course, at that age, you don't know how to do that. So I just poured the flour on the chair and I poured the butter on the chair and I was starting to mix it all up, making a big mess.
Oh my!
And my mother came in and she saw it and she was so stressed out by what she saw that she picked me up and she shook me like a rag doll. My head was going like this.
Oh, that can hurt a child.
Yes, it could kill.
Yes.
Well, a baby it can. I'm not sure about my age. But then she stomped me up the stairs and threw me down on the bed. Very, very hard. And my head hit my neck hit the iron of the bed and it split my neck open.
Oh my.
And I got it that I'm not allowed to play. It's dangerous to play. It's dangerous to have fun. It's dangerous to get excited and to have these loving feelings. I had to go to hospital and have stitches and all of that kind of thing. So, again, life is dangerous. You could get killed anytime. Again, it repeated when I was about 14 or so. I was raped and I was violently raped and almost lost my life. So again, I got it that, this is it, and it comes out of the blue, it's not expected. You don't know that it's coming. But I did manage to escape. So that was the one beautiful thing that came out of that, that God was actually protecting me. And then later on in life, I married a man who also tried to kill me.
Are you kidding me?
No, because I just attracted that abuse into the relationship. And there was one point I was sleeping, and I would say that God opened my eyes. When I opened my eyes, I saw this hammer coming towards my head. And I mean, I laugh about these things now, obviously, because it no longer affects me. But it was very dire at the time, and I just had time to reach my hand up and catch the hammer, and stop it actually getting me. I tried to be calm. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. My head's out of order." And I put the hammer under the bed, pretended to go to sleep. But the first chance I got, I decided at that moment, okay, when you marry, till death do us part, doesn't actually mean this. I escaped. I ran away. I managed to run away.
Wow.
Now,
I hang on for just a minute here. How long had you been married to this man?
7 years. 7 years. Of growing. The abuse kind of grew over time. It stopped. It was not a lot at the beginning, and then it was mostly mental. Then it started to get more physical. He was an obsessive, possessive kind of person. Couldn't stand that I would want to be away from him in any way whatsoever. So he used to sabotage me going getting work, or
Really?
If I got a job, he would actually phone the people and tell them that they shouldn't employ me. Because he just wanted me, be with him. Where he could keep control of it, I suppose,
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So.
And did your mother stay with that alcoholic father? So was that the pattern that you saw?
She did stay with him, and also brought up as a Catholic. You don't. Divorce is not an option. Really. So you stay as long as you can continue to make it work. And I also had very low self-esteem at the time. And so love was about, well, first of all, the pain-love connection, not a healthy love. It's about pain. So it's sacrificing yourself. So I was sacrificing myself for this man to try to make him happy. In whatever way I could, and if that didn't work, I'd try something else.
And most women do.
Yeah. So,
and I have to tell you, as I'm hearing your story, I mean, starting right out with the frying pan, I had a cousin, and I have a cousin that she found drugs in her husband's car, and his parents were there. and she hit him in the head with a baseball bat, nearly got arrested over it. Had a child with him, but she was smart enough to get away from him and get out of that relationship. But that was the first thing that your grandmother really hit your dad with a frying pan while your mother was giving birth. That is just, that is amazing. And the fact that you can realize that you drew things. I can remember my uncle died when I was about, I would say 9 or 10 years old. And I remember the things that I thought about when I was in the schoolyard. And then my mother was killed in a car accident when I was 12. And I had already been sent to live with my grandparents because of an abusive stepfather at 4.5. But I remember making the decision that if you loved people, it opened the door to hurt. So therefore, if I didn't love anyone, couldn't be hurt, which is really not truth, but to a young
it's your take on life,
girl, that seemed logical.
And it can affect your whole life.
Oh, absolutely.
It becomes your way of looking at life, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Mine was about survival and about working out what people wanted and trying to give it to them so that they would at least not hurt me. It's nice if they could love me, but you never felt that you were loved because you felt you were manipulating that.
So did perfectionism tie in? I'm just curious.
Oh, definitely.
All right. Okay. So for those of you that are listening and you're driven to be perfect, which can make everybody miserable around you, by the way. I did it with my children and my first husband. And, I so agree with everything you're saying. I'm listening and just thinking, oh my goodness, I was also raped at age 14. Now, praise God, mine wasn't as, violently nearly died kind of a thing, but I did have to fight him off. And he was drunk, and I locked myself in a bathroom that I didn't know had a second door. And, and even though I thought I had healing from that, many, many years later, I was touring a home and it had a bathroom with a second door. And all of a sudden, all of that flooded back.
Yes.
Wow.
I didn't deal with this rape until I was in my late 30s. I didn't tell my mum about it even. I went up 14, didn't tell anyone about it.
And I didn't either. Yep.
Yeah. You can't,
because there's shame tied to it. You somehow think you did something wrong.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
But when I think all of the traumas from the past accumulated, and I ended up with my body going into chronic fatigue. And I had chronic fatigue for about 6 years or so. And depression along with that as well. And it's like my body was saying, you're not going anywhere until you sort out what's going on inside of you, And I went to this weekend healing seminar kind of thing, workshop. And in that one weekend, I was completely cured of the chronic fatigue. I came out of there jumping, dancing, and I found a sense of peace inside of me that's never left me since, actually. And that's where my mission to start sharing with everybody came from. And funnily enough, what that weekend was an inner journeying to access traumatic memories and releasing them. And the main memory that came up at that weekend was the rape.
Interesting.
And then you get a chance to, in your imagination, speak to the rapist, speak to your mum, speak to your dad, speak to whoever is involved, that you need to kind of empty out these feelings that you never got to say or, empty out. And you kind of come to a resolution, come to a, peace about it. So, and it completely healed my body.
It brought you physical and emotional healing. Wow. Yeah. I'm really trying to process that here for a second, that those emotions and those unsaid words kept you physically bound up.
Yeah. You're spending so much energy pushing them into your body. You've got no energy left for your own good health, for vibrancy. It's like it's blocked and struggling to do anything because you're pushing it all down, Well,
I'm in awe of your part of the story too, of you waking up exactly when your husband was about to hit you with a hammer. That is God protecting you for sure. Yeah. I was married to an abusive husband, and there were only a few episodes of physical abuse, but you can never justify that. And one of them, he threw me to the ground. He was beating my head into the ground, and he was choking me. And I didn't realize that those cartoons where you see something seeing stars, that actually physically happens. And I remember prying his fingers off of my throat. And I said, you won't have to kill me. And he left. He moved out within 30 minutes. It scared him so bad. And he had been arrested the prior time that he had abused me. So he was in fear that that would happen again, is why he left. But, you know, I would just really encourage women, get help if you're in a situation like that. Don't stay. Like Joy, well, I wasn't raised Catholic. I know that God hates divorce because he says that in his word, and wanted to do everything I could to make room in my life for God to heal my marriage. But it's not wise, and it's not good for your children to...
When it comes to that point of threatening your life, I mean, this is when you have to, you know, at least set that boundary.
Oh, yes, I would think so. You know, when he and I were getting to that point of divorcing, and we were still working together, and he had another woman pregnant at the time, they actually managed to have their baby on our 10th wedding anniversary. I thought that was, you know, thank you very much. But he came in one day and he said, I fantasize about shooting you, stabbing you, setting you on fire. You know, he had this whole list of things. It's just popped in my head the other day. And I remember I got out my phone, and I didn't have a recorder on it at that time. And I downloaded a recorder, and I followed him into his office, and I said, I'm recording this conversation. I want you to know I will never have another conversation with you that I am not recording. And would you like to repeat what you just said? And he came up to me, he put his middle finger out, and while I was recording him, hit me in the face, like backhanded me with that, he split my lip open, you know. And so anyway, that's just a tidbit that's...
Yeah, it just shows you what's there, isn't it, really? You know, what's could come flying out of these kind of...
people, you know, but God redeems.
People.
God redeems. And you have transformed your life, and you're here to talk to our guests about transforming your life. And people that you listen to my show, it's very multifaceted. We talk here a lot about business. We talk about health. We talk about relationships, because if you're trying to have a business, we're usually either neglecting our health or we're neglecting our relationships. But I really, us older women, can speak to the younger women, or women that have no self-esteem and are trying to please everybody, because I've certainly done that as well, Joy. You don't have to do those things. And Joy, we need to love ourselves first, don't we?
We certainly do. We need to know how to do that. You know, it's not just say, you can't just say to somebody, you need to love yourself. You know, people need to know, how do I love myself? How do I understand myself? And I think key to that is awareness. We need to become aware of when we're not loving ourselves, or when we're playing out these parts, that little characters that we play that are actually not our true selves. They're just these parts of us that we've learned to be. For example, we've learned to be a victim, or we've learned to be a bully, or we've learned to be, you know, whatever. We play them out, and then we think that that is us. Sorry about that. And part of learning to love ourselves is to observe these characters, know that they're not us, and then we can make the choice to connect with our true self. The truth of who we really are, which is, you know, this through the experience of connecting to pure joy, pure delight, pure love, unconditional love, compassion. You know, one of the practices that I practice with my people in our group and my clients is we practice embracing all of these characters that we play with a compassionate embrace, and allowing them to be. We're not trying to fix them. We're not trying to make them go away. We're not trying to resist them. So it's like we go through this practice of watching how we're playing out in a day, and we even give them names.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Give us some examples.
So, I had one lady. She identified one that she called Anti-Terrier. And the reason she did this was that, you know, the terrier dog that hangs onto a bone.
Yes.
Terrier dog, it won't let go of a bone. No matter how much you try and pull it away from the dog, it will not let go of that bone. And she was like that with her family at home. Whenever, if they left anything on the table or left anything out of place, or they played with something and didn't put it back, she'd be like, you have to put it away, you have to put, and she really created a lot of tension in the home. It's like an obsession. But she watched it, and I encouraged people to watch it for a week, maybe 2 weeks. She watched it for 4 days, and on the 4th day, as she was watching this character playing out, she burst out laughing.
Wow.
Because she realized that's not who she is. It's just something she's been playing out. So she was able to disidentify from that character. And as she laughed, the whole family laughed and everything relaxed. And it was truly transformational, because she could never be like that again.
Wow.
It took the whole power out of it,
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And we need that. We need those simple solutions that are truly transformational. Wow.
Yes.
I would not have thought it could be that easy.
Yeah, it can. And it's just a practice.
Tell us more.
One of the other practices that we do is something called Who Does This Belong To? And it's a little bit similar, but it's just that during the day, when you're having a thought or you're having an emotion that's been triggered by something, you're feeling yourself suddenly going into feeling sad or suddenly being irritated or something like this, is to ask yourself, who does this belong to? And you don't even need to answer the question. So it's not analysis. It's just throwing the question out there. And what it does, if you're practicing, if you did this fully for 3 days, just 3 days, it doesn't have to take that long. Again, you're disidentifying. You're saying, well, actually, it doesn't belong to me. 90% of the thoughts that we have in our heads are actually not ours. They belong to the, when you go past somebody in the street and they're angry, you get affected by the energy, and then you might start feeling angry or being angry and think that you're the one who's an angry person. No, it doesn't belong to you. It's just an energy that's passed through you or by you. And you don't have to pull it in. You don't have to bring it and claim it and say that's mine. You just say, oh, it doesn't belong to me. And then what you realize is that very often the things, when you ask yourself that question, you'll understand, oh, that's my mum. Oh, that's my dad. Oh, that's my teacher. The things that you say we've learned, we've internalized, we've been conditioned into these things. But when you realize that, then it gives you permission to let go. Oh, okay, I don't need to hold on to that anymore. And then
I love that.
Yeah, you get more and more free the more you practice it.
Oh, that is fabulous. I do notice, sometimes I'll be going along and everything's great, and then all of a sudden, there's this kind of not good feeling, or sometimes a repeated thought, like, I'm really angry. You'll like hear it over and over in your head, and it'd be like, wait a minute, why am I angry? Or where did that come from? Or, or let's say you're not feeling good, and then I can tie it to, oh, well, this person said this thing. And, once you kind of dust it off and, like you said, dissociate yourself from it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
It is transformational. Wow.
It is. Indeed.
Well, how do we move on from past hurts and blocks and entanglements and things that just have tortured us?
The idea is that we bury these things in ourselves. And what happens is when cells regenerate, they pass on the memory to the next generation of cells. However, if we can find a method or a way to interrupt that passing on, then we can put something else into the cells instead, some better resources. And if the cell has a choice between better resources or weaker resources or negative resources, it will always choose the better, because we have a tendency towards the higher if we give ourselves a chance to open to that. So a lot of the work that I do is we go into the body through an inner guided meditation, and we access the cellular memories. We empty them out, like I did about the rape, we empty that out, say everything we need to say, come to completion, usually have a forgiveness process going on there. Cell's been emptied. Once the cell's been emptied, we put in resources. So we start to breathe in resources like lightheartedness and a sense of fun, understanding the bigger picture.
Oh my goodness.
Pure love, self-compassion, self-love. Whatever you feel you would like in your cells.
As I'm listening to this, I'm like, I'm going to have a client for her. Oh my goodness.
And what happens is that the next time you get an experience coming towards you that might normally trigger that old behavior, because the old patterning was still in the cells, now the patterning is not there in the cells. You have this new way of looking at things. So you actually approach that experience, that event that comes into your life with this whole new way of looking at it. You know, so it just changes the whole experience. So you don't. It is truly transformational, because you don't even approach it with that old way of thinking, the old way of being. You have a completely new way of you know, living your life. For example, you know, if somebody used to say hurtful things to you, or not used to, but if somebody says hurtful things to you, and you've got old patterning, which there's a pain-love connection, so you take it in as a wound, and you know, because you love that person, it's really hurt you, you know, you know. However, if you actually empty that pain-love connection and fill yourself with self-love, self-compassion, courage, trust, whatever it is, when that person throws that comment at you the next time that they want to hurt you, you recognize that, oh, that's their stuff, it's nothing to do with me, and it just ping, it goes straight past you, doesn't touch you. You are compassionate towards that person because you're allowing them to live their own life journey the way they need to, and you're just still sitting here full of love.
This is so true. And I can remember many years ago, I was probably in my late 20s, and I was with a friend of mine, and there was a person in my life that hurt me very much continually. It was a parental figure in my life. And she said, this other woman, this wise woman, said to me, if I could give you a gift, I would give you a raincoat that her words would just roll right off of you. And that same person is still in my life, the hurtful person. And I can say that the relationship is entirely different.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's entirely different. So I was fascinated because when you were talking about cells and having memory and whatnot, my main business is chance and water. It's water ionizers and alkaline ionized water. And in that, I've been in this industry for 12 years. We study read a lot of scientific papers and whatnot about water. And we as human beings are made up of about 70% water, give or take, more when you're younger than when you're older. And they have found that the water in our cells has memory. So that ties in exactly to what you're saying.
And it's flexible. Have you read any of, what's his name? I've forgotten his name. Messages in Water.
Oh, yes. Yes. Emoto is fascinating. As a matter of fact, I learned about him long before I got into the water when I was homeschooling my children. You know, by the way, I also had home births with both my children. So you were born at home. So, girl, we've got a lot going on in common there. And then you talked about forgiveness. God took me through a process at one point. And of course, in the Bible, we're taught about forgiving others. And for those of you that are listening, that can be really hard to do when you don't understand why we need to do it. You know, we think about, well, that rapist, I don't want to forgive them. They deserve to go to hell, or, you know, whatever it is, whatever bad thing we can think of that they deserve. But forgiveness sets us free, not them.
Yeah.
And unforgiveness, I've heard, is like drinking poison and wishing the other person would die. Okay. But at one point, God took me through this piece of self-forgiveness. And I had never heard a pastor preach on it ever. I'd never read it in the Bible. And it was just all of a sudden these things kept coming to mind. And I would tell myself I would forgive myself from the time I was tiny and I stole a piece of gum when I was like 3 years old from a liquor store, you know, something like that. And all the way up through, you know, having greasy hair when I was in junior high school, and the kids would make fun of it. You know, my grandmother would only let me take a bath once a week. And I don't know why that was, but that was her, you know, rule. And I could feel stuff just breaking off of me. And 2 different times over that 6-month period, God took me through that. And it was just absolutely freeing and amazing, you know. I don't think
another side to that I had was accepting yourself just as you are. Very, very similar to that, you know. When I met my second husband, one of one of the first words he said to me was, "I accept you just as you are."
Wow.
And that was just so amazing to me. It was like, I don't think I'd ever heard it in my life before I met him, because everything before that was judgmental, criticizing, you know, living in that world. You know, to come to a place where somebody actually accepts you just as you are was the big, you know, one of the beginnings of my healing journey as well. And,
how long had you known him when you said that, when he said that to you?
Probably about a week.
Really?
Yeah.
My goodness, you know, my husband, one of the things I realized with that abusive husband was that he was a very charismatic person, very powerful persona. But I realized that at his root, he was really, his core was very insecure. And because he wasn't really comfortable with who he was, he couldn't possibly be comfortable with me. Yeah. So when I set out knowing that I really wanted to remarry, but I wanted to be very careful and not make the same mistakes, the very first thing on my list, other than him having a relationship with God, I didn't even put that on my list because that was just so important. It was a non-negotiable, was I wanted someone who was comfortable in his own skin. And I talk about him a lot on the show because he has been so truly transformational in my life. And one of the hysterical things off of my list, way over here to the side of maybe, you know, if he met these other criteria, I would really like a man that was tall. Okay. I just like that idea, right? Well, my husband is 5'1" and I'm 5'5". But he knows he's short. And he accepts that. He's comfortable with who he is. It doesn't bother him. He's, you know, made a lifestyle out of it. He's a professional jockey. And he doesn't have to prove anything. You know, you hear about the men with the Napoleon complex and all that kind of thing. And I just adore that man. And he's comfortable with me because he's comfortable with himself. So, I love that about your husband, what he said to you when he knew you a week. That is just amazing. So we are going to take a quick commercial break, and then we are going to be back with Joy Idries, and we're going to talk more about how.
Are you a natural, foster, or adoptive parent struggling with a difficult child? I parented 19 children, and boy, did I go through some stuff. I have just the solution for you. Check out my book, The Desperate Parent's Handbook, at desperateparent.com. That's DESPERATEPARENT.com. It offers the solutions that you may never have thought of.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We are back. Joy, this is just so much fun. I am just so excited here. And I want to know, how does a person become guided by their higher self? How can they access that? Or is it something where they really need coaching or need somebody else, or can they do this, or give us some ideas here?
My feeling is that people do need some support and guidance at the beginning until they learn the practice of how to do it for themselves, because it's a very different way of being to the way that we've been brought up to be. I mean, we've been brought up to live from the mind, from the controlling, from the trying to fix things, from trying to analyze and be logical and think things through and all of that. And the way of the heart, the way of the soul is very different. It's very much about surrender, allowing the flow, allowing clarity to arise, accessing your wisdom, surrendering to the wisdom, and having the courage to step forward without normally even knowing how it's going to happen. Just trusting that everything will fall into place. So it's very different from the way of being that we know we've been brought up to be. So we need to kind of deconstruct all of that and then develop that deeper connection with our heart and with our soul. And I think that needs guidance at the beginning, because people will be saying, well, this happened to me, I'm not sure what to do with that, and I've had this experience, but I'm not sure if it's the right kind of, way to go, or am I still in ego? Am I still, so, you need somebody who's been there, done that, got the teacher who can say, yeah, okay, this is the right way. This is going to take you, back. It's going to take you forward, and all of that. So it's a very, very different way of being. And it also involves becoming very still. So it really always involves some kind of meditation practice, breathing.
Really?
Yes, because the doorway to the soul, the doorway to the heart is through stillness. It's very subtle. The voice of the heart. If you're not becoming still enough, you won't hear that subtle voice. You won't be ready to receive. It can get stronger over time. It's just, it feels very subtle because our thinking voice is so dominant. So you'll have the ego and it'll be going, no, don't do that, you gotta go there. Almost panicky mode, no, very loud. Whereas the voice of love is calm. It's gonna work out. Like this kind of thing. So it's finding a way to access that. That's mostly through, my work's mainly what I call dynamic meditation. It's a meditation where you're not just chilling out and, thinking nothing. We're actually focusing. We're focusing within. So we might focus on a part of the body, for example, and then we'll explore what's in that part of the body. And usually a memory will come up, and then we'll explore the memory and clear that out or whatever. And we'll listen to the body speaks the wisdom through. So, we might say, what does that part want to say to you? Things like this.
I have a friend from South Africa who does something called body talk. And I've had some very interesting experiences with her. I remember one time over a period of several years, I would have my urine tested for different medical things, and they'd say, you have blood in your urine. And the one doctor, I remember him saying, now, don't ignore this. You can't ignore this. And he said, I know you're going to ignore this. Don't ignore this. And I was at a session with her, and she said, there's something. Now, she didn't know anything about what I just told you. She said, there's something on the right back of your bladder. Oh, the bladder has to do with support. You're angry at your ex-husband for not providing support.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just clear that out. And of course, I didn't know whether anything happened or not, but the next time I had the test, guess what? There was absolutely no blood in my urine.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? We do a lot of work with the body and a lot of work with body memories and shifting things, and it really does work.
Wow.
It clears things tremendously, and also the soul speaks through metaphor. So in my practice, when we go into a dynamic meditation, we can have like an image which can, it speaks 1,000 words all at once. You don't need the words, just an image. There's an example. I had an inner journey. And as I entered into my inner, I saw a magic carpet, and it's like, funny, what the soul does, it gives you images that make you sit up and go, oh, what's that? Because it kind of knocks the ego off its perch. And okay, so I looked at the magic carpet, and then I noticed there was a nest of eggs on the carpet, okay, like birds' eggs or something. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that's about, And then as I was watching, the eggs started to crack open. And as they cracked open, these what I would call little angels flew up to heaven. And I just cried and cried and cried. And what was happening was I was grieving the loss of being able to have children because I'd had cancer and I'd just recently had a hysterectomy. And I just felt like I couldn't have any more children. Thank God I had one before all that happened. But, it was the grief. And these little birds went up to heaven and they waited for you here. It was my ovaries. And the little children were saying, we're waiting for you here. And I've never grieved since. It's that powerful.
Lovely.
That powerful.
Wow. Well, I had, and I think maybe we have different terminologies of the way we would see things, but I agree with everything you're saying. I feel like the Holy Spirit talks to me, and that it's that very still small voice, and there's all kinds of ways he speaks to me. It's, sometimes there's that knowing of something that isn't you because it's telling you something you wouldn't want to do. And there's other times that he can speak to me through a metaphor, like you're saying, or a biblical story that suddenly comes to mind out of nowhere, or a song. I remember I was dating someone and I woke up hearing the song in my head, Bad Romance, and I knew that this was very important. And I could
brilliant.
Just
love it.
List.
I love it.
I love that.
I know, even in the womb, because when I revisited the womb, that experience of being totally disintegrated, How that healed for me was that I got the message, God saying, I brought you back together again. You might have disintegrated with the shock, but I brought you back together again. So he made me whole, so that was an amazing message, that I didn't need to feel that I was a disintegrated person anymore.
Wow. Well, I remember one time I was in so much pain through that terrible marriage and had really suffered 7 years, and then we were separated 3.5. And at one point I got this picture that I was sitting and I had something plastic and I was scraping this white stuff off of my heart, and I was scraping it over on a rock and just kind of talking to God. And then I realized that rock, Christ is our rock. And somehow there was healing in that, for me.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's very beautiful the way he can speak to us and lead us. So let's talk about this truly transformational with somebody that, they're stuck in their hurt and their sabotage, and going from that to playfulness and joy. Because honestly, people that have known me for a long period of time, and there are a handful of people out there that do, a few of them listen to this show, thank you very much, they can attest that I was an old woman when I was very young. I was just bound up, trying to be perfect, trying to please people, and not happy, even though I tried to be happy. There wasn't genuine happiness. There was that victimness. And you can see that I have light and I have joy and I have freedom. As a matter of fact, I got a phone call yesterday, and this ties in with what you're talking about. And it's the bank. And part of my story that I don't talk about a lot is I mentioned the other business that I have. When that marriage ended, I had to buy that partner out of the business. And I leveraged everything I had to do it, my retirement, my grandmother's credit cards, which I paid back, praise the Lord. But somebody, stole 7 of my largest contracts within 17 weeks. And that obviously threw my business dramatically off kilter. Had been debt-free prior to that. And I had used credit line to keep the business afloat and have been slowly paying that off. Well, I got a phone call yesterday, and having just gotten back from my fabulous trip, and here I am, I'm in the middle of a snowstorm and my internet is down, so I can't work. And I get this phone call. And they're like, by the way, you didn't respond to our letter and we may call your loan. And which, for those of you, if you don't know what that means, it means everything is due and payable right now this second. Which quite frankly would put that business out of business. Which would be a good thing, right? And I learned back during that marriage, he was very much a knee-jerk reaction kind of a person. You had to just be angry. Yeah. And I learned that I could respond, not react. And I can choose. And you were talking about trust. You were talking about those other things. And it's just like, oh, yeah, this is another one of those things that just wants to pull me off track and get me upset. And this is all going to work out, and I'm going to trust, and I'm going to walk in peace. And it's almost like this little blip on the screen that even though it just happened yesterday, I can barely remember it. I still have to deal with it. I still have to pull together all my tax records and my banking records and prove to them and. But you know what? God has gotten me through so many times that you just don't even worry anymore. You could if you chose to.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is the thing. It gives you choice.
There you go.
That's the whole thing, isn't it? And that's the empowering thing about it.
Yes, and we've come back to that a couple times, yes.
People who are stuck in, difficult circumstances that are then taking it as that they're the victim and that they can't do anything about it. They're feeling powerless, helpless, stuck, all of these things. When you're in that place, you're not aware of the choices that you have. You've been pulled in by all of that.
Yes.
And you have a tendency to look at life like that because that's how you learned it when you were young. Maybe your parents were like that or whatever. My mother was a victim. My father was a victim. I learned to be a victim quite early. And I was a victim for a long time. I played it very well.
Me too.
I cried for 7 years almost continuously.
Did you? That same
Yeah.
7 years of that marriage, or no?
No, afterwards. I think it was
Okay.
all just, it began when my second husband gave me permission to accept myself as I am, and it just all came flooding out.
Wow.
But at that time, I didn't have the awareness to be able to change it. I was just still in mind, what's this about? And then I'd think that I'd emptied it, and then it would come back, and all of that kind of thing. But when you access the awareness, when you start observing this behavior, when you start moving away and linking yourself with this compassionate observer that you can be, this compassionate witnesser, it actually puts you in your power. And that's when you can start to make choices about, oh, you know what, I'm not going to respond to this anymore as a victim. I'm going to respond with love. What would love do in this instance? Asking myself, what would love do here? What would courage do here? What would, true power do here? If I was full of self-worth, what would I be doing? So it's like asking yourself those kind of questions, and you start to get some clear pointers as to how you can go about starting to change things.
Wow.
Yeah, because in a relationship, it's about. I've got this this freebie, which later on, if you put up the URL for it, people can access it. It's called How to Be in a Relationship. And it is not about, how to be, to make them happy, or to, to work out what they want and give it to them, which is the old typical pattern that women take on. It's how to actually be, in each moment, how to be in connection with love, how to be in connection with wisdom, so that in each moment what step to take, because that if you are serving your highest, it will serve the highest of the relationship. And what usually happens is that people start to change around you when you start to change. Maybe some resistance at the beginning, but they do eventually. I mean, one of my clients, she had a husband who kept calling her stupid. You're stupid. You're so stupid, And she would take it on, and she would feel hurt, and she'd be playing the victim. Wow. And then through the practices that we were doing, she got in touch with this, that the victim was able to let go of it. And the next time he said it, you're stupid, she went, oh, that's interesting that you're saying that. Where did you get that from? And boom, it went straight past, And after a few volleys, across not hitting, she wasn't hitting it back, into the court. He gave up. He didn't need to say it anymore, because it wasn't getting anywhere. She wasn't giving it any power. She wasn't taking it on board. She didn't believe it anymore. She knew that she was innately intelligent, as all of us are in our magnificent essence. We are intelligent. We're brilliant and intelligent. So she claimed that for herself, that connection, and it no longer meant anything to her. And the relationship actually blossomed.
Really?
Yeah. The abuse dropped, and he started to change. He started to see her in a different way.
Because she shifted first.
She shifted first. Yeah. She claimed her power, and then he started to respect her power.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. Well, Joy, what does it look like for a person to work with you? Do they have to be in London, England? Can they do it on the phone? How would they work with you?
I have clients from all over the world, and usually we'll work on Zoom as an online session, like we're doing now, face-to-face like this. We can work, obviously I do work with people in London as well, but everywhere we're not limited by geography. So we will set up a session and work on, and it works. We work deeply through that session. It works perfectly.
Well, I have somebody that I truly believe that you have information that would help her, but she doesn't have a computer, so it might have to be the phone. But tell everybody.
Yeah, well, we do. We work with things like, I don't know if Skype works on the phone. And Zoom works on the phone, by the way.
She doesn't have a mobile phone. She just has a landline phone.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
We could do that. I have done that before. I've done that, but I haven't done it for a while.
Oh, she needs it. I bet you could make it work. Oh, my goodness. Well, Joy, this has been absolutely incredible. I love this information. And honestly, my heart is pulling. I would love to talk to you so much longer about this. I know we need to wrap up. But I want you to tell everybody how they can reach out to you, how they can find you, and then I'll put it on my website as well.
Okay. Well, I've got a presence on Facebook. So I have a Facebook group, a free group, which is called Truly Transformational. So you can just put that in the search box and you'll find it there. I also have a membership group, a paid membership group, where we just go into much more, work and practice together, and much more support in there. So if anybody wants to join that group, then I think you're going to be putting up the URL. So that's called the Practicing Members Group. People who are willing to take action and just need somebody to kind of, keep kicking them up the backside.
We need that sometimes, for sure.
So I have a page called Truly Transformational as well. And, people can just get in touch with me on Facebook. They can DM me or PM me if they want to. Anytime I'm open to, that. Or they can call me for a consultation. We can discuss how we might fit together in terms of what they need and how I might be able to help. So I think that URL is going to be on your site as well.
Yes, we'll put it there for sure. Sometimes the reason we talk about it is because people are listening on iTunes or Stitcher, or we put this on YouTube. We've got it in a bunch of different locations, and yes, they can see it on my website, but just in case they're not there, I'd like them.
Yes, sure, for sure.
So would that be trulytransformational.com then?
Trulytransformational.co.uk is my main website.
Okay, .co.uk.
.co.uk, yeah.
Okay. Well, Joy, this has just been a blessing. And listen, everybody, if you have found any value in this, or if you want to dig in and get more, she's got that free website for you. Go and get the resource. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry. The free resources will be on Messenger on my Truly Transformational page in Facebook.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. That's how you get that.
Yeah.
And please share the show and like and comment. That helps us tremendously in the search engine rankings and all that kind of social media stuff. But thank you for joining us, and Joy, thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me, Natalie. It's been really nice speaking to you. I've enjoyed it.
It's been a joy and a pleasure for me, for sure. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Princess Power Hour with Natalie Thomas. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit princesspower.com or on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, and Twitter at PP Princess Power. Until next time, work smarter, not harder. Have a question for your host of Princess Power Hour, Natalie Thomas? Contact us at www.princesspower.com or tweet us at PP Princess Power.